It's a brand new set in TFT with all new champions, all new mechanics, and all new traits. Well, not all of them. Fortune is back as the Econ trait in TFT, but with a little bit of a twist, and not one that's actually very easy to understand. So to start things off in set 11 Inkborn Fables, we're going to kick off how to play the new Fortune and pilot to a spectacular first or a disastrous 8th place. It's actually not that complicated, so let's go ahead and dive straight into it. Let's start off with how to approach playing Fortune in the first place. Fortune is the Econ trait for this set that is focused on lose streaking and not necessarily like Heartsteel from set 10 Remix Rumble. In set 10, Heartsteel didn't really matter if you win or lose because you would be able to stack up the heart count, and while you did want to lose so you get more hearts, it didn't really punish you nearly as bad. In this set, if you win at all during the streak, you end up losing a lot of your luck factor, which is very bad. So basically, try to always avoid winning or even tying because it snaps your streak at all costs. So that means sometimes you're going to probably have to sell your entire board except for the fortune units, or try to purposefully grief your positioning so you can lose. But the important thing to remember is, unlike previous Fortune or Mercenaries or even Piltover, if you win, it does not cash you out immediately. It just continues the streak until you are done with your dice roll. And that's actually a good thing because that means that you don't have to win at all to cash out. You can just lose the entire time and get your cash out anyways. So in some ways, from that lens, this is possibly much stronger than previous Fortune. Other things to note is that if you start with it early, you always want to push your luck at least one time. This is because the early game cash out rewards for Fortune are pretty weak, and they start scaling really aggressively once you start hitting in the mid double digits. This is basically the same as raising the stakes from set 10 Heartsteel. Now, the other big question is, do you want to push your luck more than once? And the answer is yes, as long as you can aim for around a 10 loss streak. What ends up happening with Fortune is the first time you play it, you roll a die, and in that many turns is when you get to choose to cash out or push your luck. So when you roll the die, you could theoretically get 1 turn until your next cash out opportunity to 6. 6 is usually the worst option as you continue to push your luck because that means you have to wait 6 turns to get your cash out, and you might not have enough HP to lose because remember, you don't want to win. So if you roll a 6, you want to lose 6 more times. And you can kind of tell sometimes if you roll a 6, you basically feel like you're going to have to compromise and either win and reduce your cash out or just die. So always when you consider pushing your luck, think about, can I aim for 10 loss streak? Because that's around that money zone that you want to be in. The last point is look for a forecast that matches your items. If you get a bunch of 80 items like Deathblade, Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, go for an 80 carry. If you get a bunch of AP items, Blue Buff, Death Cap, Jewel Gauntlet, then go for an AP carry. And if you don't really have a forecast that you feel like you can play for it, then try to just reroll. What's the number of luck that we want in our Fortune cash out to make us feel like it's worth it? That magic number is 50. In the bottom left side of your board, you're going to see a number above your Fortune trade that indicates what your magic luck is. Part of the reason why I like 50 so much is you get 25% odds for Tactician's Crown, which enables a lot of powerful combinations in the late game, and you also get a bunch of 4-cause units, so that way it gives you a huge amount of spike of gold and power and units to play. This underline over lose luck when you win is just to re-emphasize that you don't want to win, because then this luck number goes down, and then sometimes you're going to end in like the 30s and 40s, which is significantly worse in my opinion. If you do end up going for the 30s and 40s cash out, you probably just want to reroll instead of go for a 4-cost play. 5 Fortune is worth it if you can play it because it heals you for 3 HP. And also gives you potential to play for beyond a 10 loss streak if you're really insane. And apparently 7 Fortune is really, really good. 7 Fortune is really good, and if you're ever able to pull it off, it is insane. And apparently there's an Easter egg that isn't listed, but there's a 9 Fortune trait. I've never hit it, but I'm going to try to one day and maybe make a video about it. The game plan is pretty straightforward for any lose streak Econ trait. Stage 2, at the very beginning of the game, you want to get Fortune online ASAP. The later you get it online, the worse it is, but as long as you're able to maintain your HP count, then you should be okay to start it even in the middle of stage 2. You want to lose all your fights, as we discussed before, and you can even take units off the carousel, and try to take any HP gain option. By now, if you play a lot of TFT, you know a lot of the augment HP gain stuff, like Tiny Titans or Metabolic Accelerator. But then there's also encounters that give you HP as well, and give you the choice of either gaining HP or in general can do things that are the equivalent of gaining HP. Definitely try to look for those if you can. If you get those early, that's probably an excuse to try to look for Fortune as well. One thing I didn't list here is in stage 2, you also can roll for Fortune if you are in a really strong economic start. That's a really advanced play and also a little bit of a psycho move, but let's say you have 2 out of 3 Fortune and all you need is like a Kabuko or a Teemo, you can consider rolling if you're in one of those Econ portals that you have like, 15 to 20 gold to start things off, so that way you can have fortune. Stage 3, prepare your transition, which is to lose all your fights until your cash out, which depends on the dice roll that we mentioned for fortune. And if you can, try to see if you can get a few kills per fight by slamming items or positioning very intentionally to try to kill units, because you do want to have as much HP as you can for that cash out. If you cash out, but you only have like 8 HP, like I've done a few times on PBE now, you're probably just going to go 8th, because there's still some strong boards that might beat you once or twice, especially if you're not able to do a flawless transition. There's an expert version of Fortune where you try to play around Exalted every single game, and that is something that I don't recommend you to try to play your first couple times of Fortune cash out. But if you're a psycho and you're like, hey, I want the hardest possible way to play Fortune so I can go for the max win out potential, then try to get Exalted in if you can. In stage 3, you're going to be collecting Exalted units on your bench and preparing for that transition, even at the cost of a little bit of gold. And in stage 4, you're going to cash out and transition to a 4-cost carry. Like we usually do, you sell a big portion of your board, if not everything, and then transition and roll down for your 4-cost carry plus units that make sense. The other thing I do want to mention, you can also reroll if you're playing an S tier 3-star carry that can win out. The reason why I specify an S tier is because S tier 3-star carries tend to be really strong and win out when they hit everything. And A tier comps tend to have a couple bad matchups. So if you're like 1 or 2 lives and you run into your bad matchup, then you probably just die, and there's no point in playing Fortune. You might as well just have played a traditional reroll strategy. The core units of Fortune for top priority are pretty straightforward. It's just the 5 Fortune units. Kabuko, a 1-cost bruiser. Teemo, a 2-cost trick shot. Tristana, a 3-cost duelist. Zoe, a 3-cost arcanist. And Annie, a 4-cost invoker. The thing is, with Fortune, it's really open-ended. There's so many different ways that you can play the cash out, and that's part of the fun of the trait. But I did give you some examples of AP and AD combos you can play around. First is Lilia is one of the more dominant 4-cost APs to start the set, so we'll see how she ends up developing. This could end up changing, but if you do end up playing around invokers and Lilia, you could just have Annie as the frontline tank invoker to stall for Lilia, and then you splash in things like Nautilus and Kog'Maw and just play more mythic invokers alongside her. Zoe's an Arcanist, and the 4-cost that you pair with her is Syndra, and Syndra is a faded unit, so you can play some faded units like Ari as another faded Arcanist, or you can link to other things like Alawi and Lux and play more Arcanists that way. There's also a possible reroll comp, so let's say you have a lot of Zoes and you just keep picking up Zoe, you have 6 Zoes, and you only have like Syndra 1. You don't have to play around Syndra 2, you can just reroll Zoe and give her all the items as well. Important to note, they also did buff Amumu very recently, right before I made this video, so Amumu, it would be a really good Warden plus a Porcelain unit that goes and ties in with Syndra. Example AD comp is with Teemo as a trick shot, you can tie in with Kaisa as a 4-cost AD caster, and make sure you get some Ink Shadow stuff because there's a lot of Ink Shadow items that are really, really powerful. Plus, Udyr is actually just a beast. This dude is incredible, especially if you get into 2-star in items. And then another reroll example would be to go for Duelists, where you play Tristana 3 and Volibear 3, and you give Tristana a bunch of AD items. Lee Sin is your tank alongside Diana, because you get the Dragon Lord, and then you splash in Sage or a couple other things while stacking as many Duelists as you can. Another really strong AD carry that I didn't list here just because she doesn't share traits with any of the Fortune units directly is Ashe, and I'll talk a little bit about her later on. But yeah, this is only like less than half of the variations that immediately come to mind, and that's not even talking about things that we haven't discovered yet as the set goes along. So while I am making this Fortune guide at the very beginning of the set, there's still a lot to be discovered. So, take this with a grain of salt. Augments are pretty straightforward for Fortune. I think a lot of people know how intuitively to play around these augments. So I gave some examples instead of just kind of bombarding you with like nonstop icons and not even talking about it. I can give you reasons why these augments are good, and that'll translate to anything else that might share similar traits with it. So Tiny Titans, Metabolic Boost, Tiniest Titans, these are all like bonus player HP, which just makes sense. The more HP you have, the more you can lose streak, so it's pretty straightforward. Anything that requires you to trade HP for those resources can be really good. So Stim Pack, for example, you lose HP anyways while playing Fortune, so you might as well get extra components. Vampirism trades HP for combat power, or what doesn't kill you encourages you to lose anyway, so you get extra resources. Things that help you get Fortune immediately online also are pretty straightforward as well. 1, 2s, 3s helps you fish for Fortune because you get many tries at hitting a Teemo or Zoe or a Tristana. The Fortune Crest also just helps you get it online very quickly, and the benefit of it is you can get the 5 Fortune and get like that metabolic boost equivalent. Cybernetic in general is just pretty decent because you get extra items all the time from the cash out, so you get more value. And then buried treasures are delayed resources, which is okay. You're basically fine waiting anyways, so you can go ahead and take things like buried treasures because you're not trying to get online very quickly anyways. You might as well just take something that has a delayed payoff. That is totally fine. And then generic combat power is always good. I listed this as a prismatic because in reality, there's not many good prismatics in general at combat power. So if you see one that's always like, hey, it's like pretty good, Harm Assist, Jewel Lotus 3, things of that nature, just go ahead and take that and see if you can just buff your entire team. Keep in mind that if you do have anything that gives you a +1 team size effect, it can also be really good with combat power if it scales your entire team. I talked about playing for a Tactician's Crown because you get +1 team size and that maybe lets you fit in Exalted. So if you get something like Martyr, which scales with your team size, or Gifts of the Fallen, or Inspiring Epitaph, things that says like when allies die, it buffs your other remaining allies. Like things like that end up being really good because you get so many units. So you get a ton of value off that combat augment. But there's many more, so definitely try out and experiment and maybe find some edges for you to have when you're playing Fortune. Here's a recommended item build to get you started with the 4 costs. And there's a lot more to talk about, and I'll probably list them out in the tier list when I officially release it. But right now we're trying to flesh things out in terms of like what's actually good. So it's not released quite yet. To start things off, AP casters are really good currently, especially the 4 costs. Lilia, Syndra, and Morgana are really, really good. And in general, they all use blue buff very, very nicely. You can play Shojin as well. A lot of their mana breakpoints end up working okay with Shojin. So you do have some blue buff and Shojin flexibility there. And also adaptive is okay to play as like a tier 2 mana item for them. But you do want to generally have a mana item source for all these units. And then just give them like other AP items that make sense. Deathcap, Giant Slayer, Guard Breaker, Jewel Gauntlet, Archangels, Nashers. It all kind of depends a little bit on their secondary trait. So for example, Syndra is an Arcanist, so she has a lot of AP. She doesn't need things like Deathcap. You can instead give her things like Gunblade or Jewel Gauntlet, things that kind of combo off the fact that she has a lot of AP. But that's more of an advanced thing. If you're still kind of learning the set, don't worry. Just throw blue buff plus like damage AP items that kind of make sense on them. Ashe is not just an AD, but she's an attack speed carry and wants to stay in the back line. Her best item is Rageblade, and from there you can kind of tag in a bunch of other things that make sense for her AD item. Last Whisper is good. It's a bow item that scales with her AD AS. And then you could play things like Deathblade, IE, Runin's Hurricane. Gunblade is also really nice to sustain your front line. Kaisa is an AD burst caster, so she wants to cast her ability often and she wants to hit harder by scaling her AD. So give her flat AD, give her ability to generate her cast like through Shojin, and just add more AD items. And Silas is also a really powerful 4 cost that I love. I think Silas might be my favorite 4 cost carry to play currently right now on PvE, only because he's really dope. And I think his best item is Crown Guard, but you could probably give him like anything like BT Titans and Hand of Justice. You can give him Jewel Gauntlet and Deathcap. You can also even just give Silas like Thief's Gloves. He just uses a bunch of different stats very well. So I'm sure Silas is actually very, very versatile, but he is a powerful AP warrior. Warrior is defined these days as a melee carry in TFT, kind of similar to what Zed and Poppy and Akali was from Set 10 Remix Rumble. All right, now we get to the advanced section. How to play Exalted. Okay, this is the advanced section of Fortune. If you are new to the set or you're just a TFT noob in general and you're like, hey, I don't want to worry about the advanced stuff, then skip this section and immediately go to the gameplay. I only recommend going for this if you are an expert and already familiar with set 11, or you are an influencer who doesn't care about going 8th for the entertainment of all your fans. Not talking about anybody in particular. Okay, the first thing you want to do is check the Exalted early game in the bottom right. There's a button on the bottom right that is similar to a Mirage or the Weather from previous sets. If you've played those from set 7, set 8, it's right next to the lock icon on the shop. And if you hover over it, it'll show you the different Exalted every single game. So for example, in this one, it's Senna, Tristana, Yone, Gallia, Lilia, and Morgana. If you play 3 of any of those units, you get the Exalted bonus, which is bonus damage for your whole team. You want to play this because the bonus damage for your whole team scales with all the things that you multiply. So you have all your items, all your augments, all your really powerful 2-stars, and then you add the Exalted bonus. It just adds a ton of damage to your composition. And so you really want to play around Exalted as much as you can. My main tip, load up the team builder with all of the Exalted units, because you're not doing anything early game anyways. You're just trying to lose. So open up the team builder, put all of your Exalted units into the team builder, and just see what it looks like together in the trait bar. It'll show you what you have with the Exalted to see if you can pair together anything that makes sense. In the example that I have here, you have Tristana as your Fortune Duelist, so you can actually just anchor that as 1 out of 3 Exalted, and start building off of that. Make a priority list of what you think is the good Exalted. So the first thing is a 4-cost carry to play around. In this case, it's like a Lilia or a Morgana. You can play around either of those in this game. Then try to play a frontline unit that makes sense, then utility, then backline. What this means is if you have a carry that's an Exalted, try to play around that because it'll be a really powerful way for you to just get Exalted online very naturally. The second layer is to prioritize frontline unit because Exalted gives you so much damage already that you just want to have more tankiness and you can figure it out later. So in this example, you could have a Galio and just tag in another Bruiser. Who cares about Story Weaver? Just play Galio plus another Bruiser and you have some instant frontline. Utility is things that give like shielding, healing, stunning, extra mana generation, just a bunch of things that like help the rest of the team and they're not necessarily trying to tank or deal damage. And then backline is like just extra damage units. So in this instance, for example, like Senna doesn't really match what we're trying to do with like Lilia Morgana because Senna is an AD sniper and it's like we already have Lilia Morgana, like why do we need Senna? So just don't even really worry about Senna in this kind of example. And then I would say after you have figured out like the core of the Exalted that you want to play, load up Team Builder again and pick the 8 units that you want to play with Exalted. So in this case of Gallia, Lilia, Morgana, you have these 3 already set, or maybe instead of Morgana, you go for Tristana. Then you can just play Lee Sin as a Dragon Lord Duelist, and that links your front line. You play a +1 Bruiser for Galio, and then you just play a +1 Invoker, like an Azir, in the back line for Lilia, and all of a sudden, you have Exalted plus a good amount of spread of AD, AP, frontline, backline utility. And that's just 6-7 units. You can actually splash it even more. That makes sense with all the traits and things that you're hitting. So what I just described is pretty complicated. So again, only play this if you really feel comfortable with the set, but that's part of what makes Exalted really fun. It's like a puzzle every single game of how to fit it in with the kind of comp that you're trying to play and the items that you get. Some other tips, if you're not sure what to play between the units, just play more frontline. We talked about this before, but Exalted gives you bonus damage, so just get more frontline in the worst case scenario. Even if you have 6 frontline units and 3 backline units, that's totally fine because Exalted gives you bonus damage that helps you scale your backline. Exalted gives +1 EXP, so your leveling intervals will change. So keep in mind that if you do get Exalted like even earlier than your cash out, or if you play Exalted afterwards, you're not going to level on the traditional intervals that you're used to because you have +1 EXP. So make sure to keep tabs on how much EXP that you need to level up. Another way you can think about this is that you get 3 EXP naturally per round instead of 2. And then 5 Exalted is mostly bait. I have not really seen 5 Exalted really pop off unless you get something like multiple Tactician's Crowns and you just don't mind having extra unit slots. Or you get to level 10 and you're just not finding the 5 costs, right, to play around. You're too poor, so you can go to level 10 and find cheap ways to improve your board. 5 Exalted is definitely a way you can do that. Let's use a game example that I played with Fortune to help showcase a little bit of what I'm talking about. This is a completed Anvil portal, and I'm going to start off with Fortune pretty quickly so we can go ahead and skip past a lot of the early formalities. I started off with Tristana out of an orb with a Kabuko, so this was the signal that I should try to see if I can go for a Fortune game. And then at 2-1, I hit a Fortune Crest with a Teemo that gives me a Fortune Emblem, so I think that is pretty obvious for me to go into a Fortune line. If I already had Fortune, I think the augment I would take here is Buried Treasures. One advanced tactic is, I'm going to pause right here, but I put a Sivir onto the board because I want to show people that you actually can do something pretty nifty. If you have the Fortune Emblem, you have the option of whether or not you can put the Fortune Emblem to activate the trait and then take the loss. This is to prevent people who are completely selling everything, right? Let's say you go up against somebody that has what doesn't kill you and they just sell everything on the board to try to grief your lose streak. Then you can have the option of putting the Fortune Emblem mid-fight in order to get that Fortune Emblem online. But again, it's a pretty advanced tactic. So I was just showing my chat at the time that I had this option. But because I already have Tristana and I want to make gold by selling the Sivir, I end up not doing that. This is me checking the Exalted for the game, which is an advanced tactic. If you skip that part, don't worry about this. But I'm checking what my Exalted is. I look at Aphelios and Nautilus, and I think, okay, maybe I can look around Ashe and play around snipers because Aphelios is a sniper and it can tie in with that Ashe. Nautilus is a Warden. I can tie it with Porcelain with a Mumu, and I can have that all kind of packaged together and then throw in another unit that makes sense, maybe a Loon for utility. Or I can just keep in Teemo and play around Fortune for a while. It's pretty optional. It's 2-3, and I get my first option to cash out or push my luck because I rolled 2 on my first die. In this case, as I talked about in the very beginning of the guide, you almost always push your luck here. The only times you don't is if you ever feel like you're not going to continue your lose streak guaranteed no matter what. Let's say you're scouting and you see like everyone is going to be playing weaker boards because they're holding like 1 unit or open forting. So you can just cash out and just play something else instead of Fortune. But in this case, I'm pushing my luck. And when I push my luck, I'm going to roll another die. And that die is going to tell me how many turns until my next cash out interval. So it says 2. 2 means that in 2 turns, I'm going to have the option to either cash out or push my luck again. Spoiler alert, I'm going to push my luck because it's still way too early to do anything but cash out, because if I get 3 is my luck number, and remember, what do we want? We want 50. 50 is that magic number that we can get to. On carousel, I get encounter for a golden spatula. I take the Zoe because Zoe is a fortune unit, and now I have 5 fortune. I have to level the 5 though to get to 5 fortune because I need to have a 5th unit to play to put the fortune emblem on. And so I am worried about my board being too strong. So I'm trying to weaken my board, position Tristan on the front, right? Try to put units that don't have synergy. If I kept Severin, I would have gotten trick shot. And my opponent's playing like a relatively weak board. So because I positioned so poorly by trapping Kabuko in the corner, frontlining my backline units like Tristana, I guarantee I lose. Okay, this is my second cash out turn opportunity because remember, I rolled 2 and then 2. So now I can choose to cash out, push my luck. I'm healing HP because of 5 fortune. So I'm pretty much going to push my luck. I have to be careful not to make this Kabuko 2 actually, because that might make me too strong, but I can buy it after the round has started. So I can have Kabuko 2 ready for the next turn, but not this turn. And again, I look around, I see some people, they're playing level 4 weak boards, but they do have item slam, so they are ultimately going to win. And I killed 1 unit, which is really nice. I open up my team builder, and now I'm starting to put in different Exalted units that I think I might play around, and this is what I'm going to do because I don't have anything else to do with my time anyways. Make sure you beat Krugs. This is surprisingly tricky if you've never played Fortune because you're like only holding Fortune units. I have seen some really good players lose to Krugs before, even on PBE while playing Fortune. So yeah, definitely make sure you play 5 units if you can. Otherwise, you're probably going to lose. This is me using the team builder to see if I can play around Kaisa because Teemo is a Exalted unit. And this is where I use a synergy bar to kind of like look and analyze what the Exalted could be. Like, it doesn't really matter what's going on, right? I know I'm going to lose. Let everyone just get their free hits. I'm playing 5 fortune. I'm healing HP. It's all good. I went 3-2. Obviously, the best one I could pick up here is probably Tiny Titans and then just go for like the ultimate push. But if I can't get that, I'm probably going to look for good combat augments to make sure that when I cash out, I'm very strong. I find Cybernetic Bulk, which is really good. And because I get so many extra items, I'm going to be able to get value off Cybernetic Bulk due to the cash out. I'm playing a slightly better board now. Like, I'm trying to play a little bit around duelists. I'm thinking about what I want to open up with items. And at this point, I know I want to play AD because I have Last Whisper. So I'm going to try and make some items on the bench preemptively. This is another intermediate tip, which is if you know you're going to make some items, don't leave them unmade on the bench. Free up bench space by combining items and then just keeping them on the bench. So that way you can organize your thoughts a little bit cleaner. On carousel, I see another spatula. So I'm going to go for that second spatula and make a tactician's crown. I agonized for a long time of what I wanted to make off the spatula. That was something I thought about, which is like, do I want a ghostly emblem? Do I want a mythic emblem? Do I want all these other different things? I decided instead to just say like, hey, there's a spat on carousel. I will make a tactician's crown. And if I don't get a tactician's crown, I might just reforge the spatula or use it for cybernetic value. I'm not making the tactician's crown right now though, because I don't know if that makes me too strong. Although at this point, people in chat are reassuring me like, hey, look, you are very weak. Don't worry about it. Just slam some of these items, try to get some unit kills. But I'm paranoid, right? I'm paranoid. I've played too many games where I accidentally won and reduced my cash out. If I had slammed Last Whisper and played Tactician's Crown, I probably would have killed 2-3 units. This encounter says my EXP now costs 3 gold instead of 4 for the next 3 rounds, which is awesome. That means I get to preserve a lot of gold to level to 8 and roll down. And you can tell I'm at 32 and that's a little bit uncomfortable, but thanks to 5 fortune, I've been healing and also I've been killing like 1 or 2 units. So that's been helpful. If I can cash out around like 15 to 20 HP, I'll feel really comfortable. I'm pre-leveling here as well because I just want to simplify my decisions. All right, so now we're at the end of stage 3. I've successfully did the 10 loss. I have a way above 50. I'm at 75 luck, so I'm going to choose cash out and go for 75. Let me go ahead and actually slow this down so we can watch it and kind of play it in real time here. So I get 3 full items and I get 4 5 costs. And at this point, I know I have to kind of go quickly. I open items. I think about whether or not I want to play around some melee carries as well as some backline carries. There's a lot going on, so feel free to rewatch this part if you want. But I know I have a Zir pair, so I'm going to play around a Zir pair. I'm rolling down. Thank goodness I have some units already tagged into my team builder because I'm getting already very dizzy. I find a Kaisa, so I tech in the Kaisa. I go IE Last Whisper on Kaisa. I am very dizzy. This is why you want multiple lives, just in case. I put Edge of Night on Udyr, which is actually not very good. Udyr doesn't actually care about those items, but I do have Bloodthirster and Titans, which is nice on the Udyr, so he can actually be very tanky and deal damage. Tactician Crowns also give stats, and I spread it around for cybernetic bulk value. Morello is also not very good on Galio, by the way. That was a panic move. I should have put that on Hui and put Hui in. 4-2 Augment, I'm looking for more combat, and I see Gifts of the Fallen. And Gifts of the Fallen is really good. Remember, if you get a Tactician's Crown, because you have just more units than usual, so your team gets even more stats than average. I realized I was playing 2 Teemo. I play the Hui in. I'm like, oh god, I should have put the Morello on Hui. Oh wait, I have Morgana. I should have played that Morello on Morgana. So a lot of sloppiness to this, but hopefully this one inspires you to don't worry. If you mess up, you're gonna need multiple reps to get this correct. But also, it's okay. Everyone's gonna mess up when they play Fortune. So it's funny because I was looking at my original Exalted around playing Nautilus and Morgana, but instead I'm playing around this Teemo and this Kai'Sa. And I frontlined my units. Notice that my synergies aren't crazy, right? I have 2 out of 3 Ink Shadow. I'm not trying to greed for Fortune. I only play around Galio as the Bruiser, and I have a +1 Bruiser through Rek'Sai. And then I have Teemo as the Exalted with the Kai'Sa. And then I just play kind of this Dragon Lord package with Udyr, because Udyr is a good 5 cost. And so this is me just trying to make do. My board actually doesn't have that many synergies, even though I'm fielding 9 units. And that's something that you have to get a little bit more comfortable playing around with Fortune. Just try to go for high quality upgraded units, as opposed to just thinking about synergy bar. Hyper fixating on synergy bar is a very easy way to get too dizzy and then just die. My encounter offers me a different armory, so I take an artifact anvil, I think, although I think I should also take a support anvil. This encounter gives me an armory. I choose support over artifact because I think I have a lot of opportunities to get some big AoE buffs, and I think at this phase of the game, support is a lot stronger than artifact anvils, because artifact anvils buffs 1 unit and support theoretically buffs, a multitude of units. Aegis is the logical choice here, and I can also use Aegis to get some cybernetic bulk value. So I'm thinking about if I want to put Aegis onto Lee Sin, or do I want to put it on Diana? Okay, I think this is a misplay. I should have put it on Diana, I think. Whoops. Let's fast forward so I can look past all the micro misplays I'm making. Oh, I actually reforged and got a Behemoth emblem. Oh, that's pretty smart. I actually reforged a Fortune emblem and got a Behemoth emblem, and now I get the Behemoth on the Galio. Although I guess I probably should have put Behemoth onto the Diana, but hey, Galio has Steadfast Heart and my Morello. Sometimes in these situations, you kind of weigh the risk and reward of greeding for cybernetic value versus stacking a tank that can be more effective. All right, now we're speeding things up back again. And from here, the game is pretty straightforward. There's not really much left to do. I'm just going to try to push level 9, add more quality units, and win out with just hitting a bunch of 4s and 5 costs and supporting my board in a very meaningful way. All right, we successfully streaked the rest of stage 4, and I found a second Hui. My Hui is going to duplicate another Hui. It is one of the new mechanics of one of the legendaries featured, which is Hui. Bottom center square of your bench gives you a spot to duplicate whatever champion is in it based on their cost. So Hui is a 5 cost. It costs 5 turns in order to get a duplicate of Hui. So next turn, I'll have a 2-star Hui. I choose to go for Thief's Gloves, and I'm going to push 9 next turn. This is the point where Exalted actually gives me +1 EXP per round. So next turn, I'll have 23 out of 72 in the bottom left. So I'm actually probably not going to level next turn. I'm probably going to wait for 2 turns from now, because that way it's a natural even interval as opposed to leveling and having 1 or 2 extra EXP over. I actually leveled this turn, 3 out of 72. You know what, Frodan? You should have just waited 1 turn, man. 21 HP. Oh, God. It's nothing like watching your own gameplay and then saying what you should do and then watching yourself do something else. I had a remover, so I got the Morello off of the Galio because it wasn't very useful, and I put it onto a Hui 2. Oh, man, looking at that 4 out of 72 is painful. I hit an Udyr 2, and at this point, I kind of knew I won. I thought that everyone else's board, while their 2-star 4 costs, aren't going to be able to match up with my multiple legendaries and a good Kai'Sa backline as an AD burst unit. And I even can look at going at level 10 right now because I'm streaking so hard and I'm still printing 1 EXP with Exalted, and I could go to 10 and just play another high quality unit. Carousel, I'm just thinking about another item for Hui if I can. I think I take Shiv here because I don't have any magic resistance shred. I have Last Whisper for anti-armor. I have Morello for anti-heal. I need Shred for magic resistance. I put this on Azir though because I think I want to spread out for cybernetic bulk. Plus, I think Azir is a faster attacker because Hui is spending a lot of time casting. I successfully streaked to the end of stage 5. Probably a mana item here for Azir. I think it matters for when I get this Morello applying. What? I put it on Rakan? Okay. Okay, this turn, I'm waiting for the natural interval because I go to 18 as opposed to 17. And that should be a clean level to 10. And now I'm level 10. I tech in another 2-star units. I roll, hit a legendary. And none of these fights are really close, by the way. I'm winning by 5, 6, 7 units. I'm just crushing everybody. And by now, almost everybody knows that they're playing for second in the lobby. I play Wukong 2, give him some mage's value. Last carousel. I think I'm just looking for any items that make sense with my carries. I took Infinity Edge. I'm not sure why. I probably should have just taken Nashers, put it on Rakan. But at this point, I 2-starred everything. 2-star Wukong, 2-star Rakan, 2-star Hui, 2-star Zir, 2-star Udyr. That's just so many 5 costs, so much value. And all of them are getting amplified by Exalted. It's just way too much. Hold on, never mind. This person hit Morgana 3. I mean, Morgana 3 is pretty strong. 3-star 4 cost against my level 10 Exalted Fortune cash out. Let's watch this last fight. I'm not sure if I win. Let's watch it in slow motion. Okay, Morgana 3 casts. And it looks like their front line is cracking too fast. And I have Udyr 2, and Morgana can't really AoE things down. Okay, wow, I beat Morgana 3 as well. Maybe Morgana 3 is not that good, or maybe that fortune board was that cracked. So there you have it, our first TFT Academy episode in the books to teach you how to play Fortune for set 11. It's a lot of fun, especially if you're trying to think about the Exalted puzzle, but also it's just your average loose streak trait, so just have fun with it and don't take the results too seriously. Speaking of TFT Academy, it is a new website that Dish Soap and I are launching in tandem to provide you guys up-to-date information about how to climb in TFT. It's basically a summary of all of our content guides, plus a little bit of extra to help you practice and climb the ladder. So make sure to check it out, tftacademy.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.